April 3rd, 2015. So anyway, they were taking all of these things from me, the government was, and actually right now as I'm talking, I just need to be clear about something, because I'm actually being tortured to an entire side of my face and to my teeth right now on one side, as the United States has done in the past, and they quit doing that for about a week, but I think that they just want to get a reaction out of me, and I'm not going to give them that satisfaction. So anyway, they refused to process this passport. I was out of college because I got put into a bad situation where I didn't get this money that should have been coming to me, which I was expecting. I mean, it had already been agreed on that there was a settlement. And one of the government lawyers, the lawyer that I had, backed out at the very last minute, so I didn't even get it. And I was owed that money. That was money that was like right there on the table. I even had cops collude to put me in jail so I couldn't access any of my box and documentation that that I needed for the settlement hearing to collect this $50,000. So there were a number of government individuals who were forcing me out of financial security of any kind, and so after that happened, with my car being towed and being forced out of $50,000, the United States, I was pregnant with my son, and then the United States attempted to kidnap him, and they started torturing both of us to try to get him from me. And they made the torture so bad that they knew that I would feel like I had to leave and try to go somewhere, because they'd tested that in the past. They'd torture me in the past when I was a kid, and then they'd tell me to run. Go ahead and run. Why don't you try to run away from this? And so they'd make me run. Like when I was a little kid, they'd torture me really badly, and then make me think that if I ran away from a location, that the torture would stop. And they'd stop, even though they could have tortured me in any location, because they could have targeted me no matter where I was. But they wanted me to think that that if I ran to a different location, it would be better. Because what they ultimately wanted me to do was to move, because they wanted to have me destabilized from where I was living, to look unstable, to not have work. And they liked following me around, finding out where I'd go, and they made a sport out of it. It was like they were hunting, like hunting a fox. They'd send all their dogs out to sniff around and try to figure out if they could train me, what tree I'd go up, and maybe there'd be a guy in the tree who's going to rape me. Maybe it'll be the next U.S. employee that's next. They'd make bets on it. So in that situation, after I was forced out of Canada with my son and lied about by Canadians who had also tortured me when I was a kid, they used to traffic me over there to Canada, and the same individuals were waiting there for me, and they kidnapped my son from me, took him away from me illegally, denied me a right to a political asylum hearing, and then forced me back with the lie that I had committed an immigration violation, which I didn't commit. Then they forced me to sign a false confession at their border gate, claiming that I was trying to once again get into their country when I wasn't, and they knew it. So they kept, committing all these crimes against me. And then when I was back into Washington, I had no house, no car, because they forced me to leave my car. They forced me to leave my car along with my son. In Canada. So Canada got a whole bunch of things for me, including tapes of my singing and songs that I'd written. And it's not the first time Canada has stolen music from me either, because they were getting a lot of songs that I wrote, and almost every song that Celine Dion ever performed that made any money is a song I wrote. And at one point they trafficked me over there to meet her and her husband, and they had told me that I would get some of the money, and the government kept lying to me. They kept saying that I was going to get some of the money and they were going to have me performing some of the songs. And then all they were doing was having me sing the songs for them so that they would know how they went, stealing the entire song and the idea and the melody and the way I did it, my style, and then telling me you don't get anything and forcing me out. So they basically get introduced to me just to learn my style, copy me, and then claim that they did it, that it was all their work. They wrote the lyrics, they developed the style and the music and everything. So Canada has profited off of me illegally. And so then I was getting sent back from there. I had no place to go. I didn't even have food. And the United States government put me in that position deliberately because they were kidnapping my son for me. And of course it makes it easier for them to do that when they've stolen everything from a parent and then forced them to run and then kicked them out of any kind of possible security. And so from there I tried to go to the East Coast, thinking maybe I could get a lawyer or get some kind of medical documentation that would show how badly we had been tortured, because I was tortured so badly. From what I had read, it can destabilize and alter the expression of DNA in your blood. You can get a blood sample that will show changes. And if it's not still present in the blood, a kind of disorientation that's caused by various military means. You can get samples that are like from teeth or from bone, other skin, other kinds of samples can be taken that are stored longer term, and you can have it. You can prove that damage has been done to you. And it was really, really bad what the United States government was doing. The government was torturing me and my son at extremely high levels. My son's toenails and fingernails were curling up from it. And we ate really well. There was nothing wrong with the water. There was nothing wrong with the food that I gave him. Nothing environmentally strange about where we were. We were being tortured at really, really high levels. And literally, it was so high, basically it affects calcium deposits, the form of technology they were using. It had curled up all of the, because nails are made out of calcium and protein, it had curled up our nails. And this kitten that we had, that, it's the kitten's skeletal bone structure hadn't fully developed yet. The kitten ended up getting a totally warped skeletal frame. Like, the cat's back was all hunched and the spine was wavy and warped, and the legs were ended up getting crooked, and that it was fine. Like, the kitten was fine until the United States government started torturing us at that location. And like I said, the torture was so bad, all of a sudden the kitten started, over time, after about a month, the kitten looked like a totally different cat and had horrible skeletal and bone malformations. And both me and my son had evidence of being tortured. And there were Canadians there that saw that. Bruce and Corinne, they saw the toenails on my son. They saw what had been done to him. They knew it was going on, and they did nothing. They support a corrupt system because they are corrupt. And in fact, when I was over there, they had tried to pressure me to offer some kind of prostitute service in order to get medications that my son needed for having bronchitis, really bad bronchitis. So they were basically trying to squeeze me into a really desperate position just to try to entrap me so that they could have an excuse to jail me in Canada and take my son away from me. So Bruce and Corinne over there are really horrible people. I don't thank them for anything. And they're basically some kind of cops, so like border patrol police. And whether they work for the U.S. or Canada, seriously, I don't really know, because there are a bunch of people that work for both sides in that area. But they are not good people. And so all of these things had happened with my son. And then I was going to go to get some evaluations done of physical things that had happened to me that I'd done some research on, and I thought that I could prove. So I went to the East Coast for that, and then I ended up in Washington, D.C., and I thought, well, maybe I should get work here and then try to find this other place where they do that kind of thing. So I tried looking for work right away, and basically I had government individuals that the government set up to tell me that, you know, I could stay safely at a place, and then when they wanted to move me out and put me into a desperate situation and have me on the run again, just so I could be vulnerable to some asshole that the United States government wanted to have rape me, wanted to give a shot at raping me. I was staying with this one guy who didn't touch me or anything, but then all of a sudden, with no notice or anything whatsoever, he just locked me out one day. And I had no notice, no place to go, nothing, and he worked for the United States Navy. And so I was suddenly forced over into downtown D.C., and he basically did this to me too. The timing of when he locked me out of this house that I was staying in, where I was trying to get some footing and get some employment first, he did that to me after I met Chris Dabney. So Chris Dabney is someone that I had known first and met as a kid, when I was a kid and he was a kid. And he was from the East Coast, but he also traveled out to the Pacific Northwest several times. And I saw him there, and I also went to the D.C. area, and I saw him over in D.C. And so I didn't recognize that or know that it was that same person, but Chris basically presented himself again at a cafe that I was typing at. I was using Wi-Fi and looking for a lawyer, trying to find a lawyer for my son, for my son's case, because I was trying to get my son back. So the government thought that it was a good time to get one of their assholes to rape me again. And they had Chris Dabney basically track me down and then tell me, hey, you can get a job, you can work over at the Post Pub. And I didn't remember that, oh yeah, the Post Pub is this place that the government trafficked me to a long time ago, and had done experimentation on me over. They had a bunch of people from the Department of Justice abusing me and torturing me at that place. They had an upstairs office, and I was tortured in that upstairs office. And then they had me practice quote-unquote waitressing downstairs with cameras on. And the entire time they just wanted to make predictions about me and what I do and give their government psychics ideas as to what my actions and movements would be. And I think the government was very interested in trying to get psychics honed in on me and where I went and what I thought and that kind of thing, because I had a lot of information against the United States government because they'd tortured me so badly and for so long. And I'd met a lot of people that most people don't meet, that the government trafficked me around to, and I was one of the government's biggest money makers because they were stealing more from me and making more money off of me than almost anyone in the U.S. at that time. And that's because, like as I said, I've written hundreds of songs, and they've made a lot more than any contract for killing or for a drug deal has made. So they wanted to always control me. So when Chris said, you can work at the Post Pub, I didn't realize it's the same place. And I said, okay. So then I went back to my place over, 20 minutes away, where I was staying with this other guy that I didn't have anything physical going on with. And I kept to myself. And I had just been hoping to have a little more time to get footing so that I was going to get enough money and get an apartment. And I started looking for an apartment for myself online. And instead, all of a sudden, right after I met Chris Dabney, this Navy guy found out about it, because obviously the government keeps their contacts all clicked in. And they've got a network of government rapists. And they wanted me to be raped. So to force me out of a situation where I was, staying safe or keeping to myself, that kind of thing, he locked me out so that I basically went to work the next day, which was my first day, and then Chris and some of the other people said, "Do you have a place to go, or are you going to go home?" And they kind of made a suggestion, like, trying to feel out where I was going for the night, and they already knew that I'd been kicked out, because this government had arranged for me to be kicked out. So I said I didn't have a place to go, and then the two individuals who were sitting there, who were basically like drawing lots as to who I would go with, and this is after I'd been drinking a lot. So I mean, I was already drunk after work. I mean, it was after work that I drank, and I'd already had a lot to drink. And then it was James Cartwright from the United States Pentagon sitting there on one side, and I didn't know what he did. I was told he was a strategist, but I didn't remember him, even though I knew him a lot when I was a kid. It had been like decades since I'd seen him. So he was sitting there, and then Chris Dabney was on the other side of me, and then they were both telling me to go home with them, and that they'd have a safe place for me to stay. And I wasn't so sure about Chris, because I thought maybe he wanted to do something else, and I thought, well, this other guy, he said I could just sleep on the floor, or that he wouldn't touch me or do anything. And I didn't know who he was, but I figured, well, he works for the Pentagon, sounds like an official person, maybe I'll sleep on the floor over there. So that's why I chose to go with him, not because I even knew what his position was, or how high up he was, or what he did, because I didn't remember him at all. And I was put into that position by a United States fucking Navy person who decided to just shut his door on me with no notice. Just for the purposes of having me raped. Because that's all this government has done to me. And so I had to go to James Cartwright's hotel and look like a floozy while I was incapacitated and vulnerable, because the fucking military can't keep their hands to themselves. And I don't have any sympathy for his fucked up wife. Sorry. And that sorry is sarcastic. Because she and her husband in the past, when I was a kid, tried to set me up for some things that I didn't do. I think the only reason those two are still together is because they're just as corrupt as the other one is. I don't think they're going to find anyone else that'll match the other one up as well as they do to each other. And when I say they set me up, I mean they set me up in a war zone that I was trafficked to when I was a kid. And I'm going to continue this video in, well, what I'm talking about in the next clip.